Someone said to me recently, this whole 2021 New Year, New You thing starts on the first Monday of the year, right? So January 4th. So since this sermon is about subverting notions of resolutions, I think I'll also subvert the idea about when to begin those, and we'll start tomorrow. So that's when this will all begin. But yes, resolutions. The beginning of a new year is almost always about resolutions, about the commitments or the promises or the aspirations we set for ourselves to make improvements in our lives. So much of these resolutions rest on ideas about self-improvement. They rest on ideas about getting better, getting stronger, getting thinner, getting richer, getting more organized, getting happier. It's like a regimen we set out to accomplish, this resolution setting for each new year. And typically, resolution setting comes from reflection, a time of pause and quiet to think back on the 12 months prior and pinpoint what it is that stood between you and the person you want to be, the life you wished you were living. Resolutions come from taking stock and identifying a problem, and then orienting yourself towards a solution towards that problem. Like there's a knot in your life, and that this new year presents a chance to work towards undoing that knot. But I think this period of reflection, it's disguised as reflection, but it's so often really about judgment. It's really about self-critique and looking at our lives as something to be fixed. Resolutions are so often about fixing. I think that 2020 and the pandemic and its attending upheavals have granted us a reprieve from this rather exhausting ritual. It has granted us the space and the perspective to embark upon a different kind of journey for 2021. One that decenters judgment and agendas and fixing, and one that asks us for acceptance and an embrace of good enough and worthy, just as we are. A resolution that runs deeper and invites us to build on that which we experienced collectively in 2020. For one, 2020 gave us a chance to get clear about what was important to us. It stripped down the excess and it clarified just what was valuable. Health, which far too many of us took for granted before. Community, which we came to rely on in ways we never knew previously. Life itself, the chance to simply exist and recognize the privilege that is living. It stripped us of busy schedules too. It took away dinner parties and date nights at new restaurants. It took away endless birthday parties and bake sales and field trips. It took away errands and obligations and a lot of the trappings. I think we are left with not what do we want to do in 2021, but rather how do we want to be? Henry Nouwen, a Dutch Catholic priest, once wrote, "More and more, the desire grows in me simply to walk around, greet people, enter their homes, sit on their doorsteps, play ball, throw water, and be known as someone who wants to live with them." It is a privilege to have the time to practice this simple ministry of presence. Still, it is not as simple as it seems. My own desire to be useful, to do something significant, or to be part of some impressive project is so strong that soon my time is taken up with meetings and conferences and study groups, workshops that prevent me from walking the streets. It is difficult not to have plans, not to organize people around an urgent cause, and not to feel that you are working directly for social progress. But I wonder, Henry says, I wonder more and more if the first thing shouldn't be to know people by name, to eat and drink with them, to listen to their stories and tell your own, and to let them know with words, handshakes, and hugs that you do not simply like them, but truly love them. Now, there are certainly major obstacles to no one's prescription, given our current predicament. No handshakes, no entering people's homes. But there exists holy truth in what he offers. That in fact, the desire to make change in the world might happen not so much in meetings and workshops and conferences, but in simply being with one another, and in being with one another simply. To listen to stories and tell your own. To love and be loved. It's a countercultural resolution, one that eschews fixing or judgment or any kind of action in favor of one that insists on kindness and patience and witness. Without the insistence on bettering ourselves, without the impulse to fix our lives and find our purpose, we are left with questions. How might we be this year? More specifically, how might we be together? How might we be towards one another? How is it that we want to companion one another through the next 12 months? A ministry of presence is a fancy and spiritually enlightened way of talking about companionship, about how to sit beside someone, literally or figuratively, without an agenda and without a need for control. We talk about this as a ministry, as a spiritual practice, because I and many of you have experienced that the quality of that kind of exchange transcends. It is one that unlocks and illuminates parts of yourself and parts of others that were hidden, parts that were obscured. We've been primed by 2020 to embark upon a spiritual practice of companionship because we've run out of things to say. Too often I hear from friends and family that they've got nothing to report on, nothing to really offer. But the desire to stay on the line or stay in relation, it hasn't diminished. We just have little to trade. So here is the opportunity to simply be present to one another without the transactional updates on what you watched or what you ate or where you went. What emerges in that being present is a space that invites vulnerability, sharing without shame, without judgment. When you run out of things to talk about, you're left with the truth of how you really feel. And if you have a companion in that space, if you have someone who doesn't want to fix or change, but simply to hear your story and love you, you've created holy space. In the UU version of Abide With Me that we heard from Lee Morris, she sings, "Faithful companions, share this path with me. Through all our fears and hopes, abide with me." Abide with someone. It's a ministry of presence. Endure with me what is to come. Be my faithful companion. Sit with me. And I believe that in the year to come, we must remember the importance of sitting with the bad is as equally important as sitting with the good. And honestly, we practice this exchanging of bad news and bad things over and over, and yet humans are not innately good at supporting each other through bad things. This is another reason why a ministry of presence can be a spiritual practice that deepens your relationships. When we see or know someone is in pain, that someone is hurting, it hurts us. It is a testament to our relational animalness It hurts us to see someone else hurting. It's uncomfortable. We perceive it as anxiety, or perhaps it manifests physically, to see and endure another person's pain. So often we rush in. We rush in not to help them, but to help ourselves feel better. We do this in three major ways. We minimize. It's not so bad. We bright side. Well, on the positive side. And we compare. Oh, I went through that, or I know someone who went through that too. These are the three most obvious and overt ways in which we struggle naturally with a ministry of presence, with listening and holding space for someone without judgment or agenda or a desire for control. There are more subtle ways too. When we do chaplaincy training, when we learn how to accompany someone in a hospital setting, perhaps, there are even more subtle ways that humans tend to want to exert control. For instance, we're taught never to offer someone crying a Kleenex or a napkin or a hanky. It sends the message to them, your crying is messy. It's hard for me to watch, and I want you to wipe your tears away. If they ask for it, that's different. But to interrupt the moment of vulnerability with an insistence that they need to clean themselves, it's to interrupt a moment of vulnerability. Martin Buber, the Jewish philosopher and theologian, is known primarily for his work entitled I and Thou, in which he explores the need to understand other persons as subjects, not as objects. Other persons are not objects onto which we project. They are not accessories to our stories or our agendas. They are subjects with their own sacred needs and desires. To engage with another person, to be present to them, is to acknowledge them as a subject, not an object. To engage with another person is to add a subject to a subject and then create a third. The relationship between the two. This third space, as some know it, this third space between subject and the relationship between the two. In Christian pastoral counseling, this is sometimes known as the embodiment of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit between the two. This is what opens up during true ministry of presence. The third space, which I see as fundamental to Unitarian Universalist theology. Your truth meets my truth. And neither are lessened in their truth, but what emerges is a third and different and equally as truthful truth. You can see the world one way and I can see it another, and together we unveil a third way of seeing the world. And that moment of vulnerability, it is sacred. This is the space that opens up when you loosen expectations, when you let go of an agenda, and there will probably be tears. We have endured an awful lot in the past 12 months. And honestly, we will probably continue to endure more. Tears are to be expected. They are to be encouraged. We should be trying to have more tearful conversations in 2021. And we should sit with them, the tears and the person that they came from, in a way that expands that holy space of sharing. In a way that lets them know you love them and you love their story. I think of the ways our small group facilitators are already so skilled at embodying this, cultivating space and time for sharing that feels like a witness to someone's journey, another's pain, another's questions. I think of our caring ministry team who sit on the phone with folks in the hospital without an agenda or a plan, other than making that person feel heard and less alone. The poet Teddy Macker, in his exquisite long-form work, A Letter to My Daughter, he writes, "It seems we have made pain some kind of a mistake. Like having it is somehow wrong. Don't let them fool you. Pain is a part of things. But remember, dear Ellie, the compost down in the field, if the rank and the dank and the dark are handled well and not merely discarded, but turned and known and honored, they may one day come to beds of rich earth, home to even the most delicate rose. It seems we have made pain some kind of a mistake, like having it is somehow wrong. But remember, if handled well, turned and known and honored, they come to beds of rich earth, home to roses. I think of 2020 like this. We have known pain, and having it is not a mistake. It is a part of things. And now, what do we do with the compost? We turn it and know it and honor it. We don't discard it. And we sit with it. In this first service of the year, as we take stock of all that came before this, in this first service of the year, when we look down the pike and are unsure and scared of what is to come, I hope that we remember that pain is not a mistake. That knowing it and seeing it and witnessing it in ourselves and in another is a ministry, a vital, holy ministry that we might resolve to do together. May we have more tearful conversations in 2021. May we feel safe and known and offer up the tender parts of ourselves to create that sacred third space. May we listen and just be. May we turn and know and honor the pain of 2020 so that we might ready ourselves for the most delicate of roses. Blessed be. Amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.